This is David Williams with Brooklyn Fights. The Professional Fighters League, featuring 72 MMA fighters from 13 countries, will hold PFL 2, the league's second regular season event of its 2018 season, on today, Thursday, June 21st, 2018, at the Chicago Theater in the Windy City. Tonight's action will include a fight featuring Kayla Harrison's MMA debut. Harrison is a two-time Olympic gold medalist and the only American to ever win a gold medal in judo.
I fight June 21st in Chicago for PFL 2. I usually thrive under the legs. You know, I like pressure. That's what I got used to after fighting for 10 years, you know, at the highest level of sport. That's what becomes your normal. I actually feel worse not fighting. Like, I don't like being normal. Who wants to be normal, you know? I want to be special. I don't know, I guess I just want to get the world buzzing. There's a new kid in town, you know? New kid on the block. There's a little bit of pressure, you know, everyone's talking about, obviously, am I going to be the next big thing? Or, you know, I have 2 Olympic gold medals, what does this mean? So there's a little bit of pressure, but it's nothing compared to what I put on myself internally. You know, I'm my biggest critic, I'm my biggest pressure. So I don't really think about all of that outside noise. I just try and focus on being the best Kayla I can be. Having a goal, having something to look forward to, having a purpose every day when I wake up is, you know, it's important for me. My goal is to be the best, so when I achieve that, then maybe I'll say, okay, I'm done with fighting. It's not just fighting, you know, I wrote a book and I have a foundation and there's a lot of things that I do outside of fighting. So I started the Fearless Foundation in 2012, shortly after I won my first gold medal. It's no secret that I was sexually abused by my first judo coach. And when I was 16, I told my mom that had been happening. I moved to Boston to train with the Pedros, who were my coaches from then until now. They're still my coaches. They're still in my corner. But I didn't start sharing my story publicly until right before the 2012 Olympics, right around when the Jerry Sandusky scandal started happening and breaking out. And I actually got in a fight with my best friend about it because she was like complaining about Joe Paterno losing his job, but no one was like, there were kids at Penn State like rioting and like flipping over cars about a football coach losing his job, but nobody was talking about the countless victims whose lives had been changed forever. And I realized that that's because it doesn't have a face. People they don't think sexual abuse happens to them, or that it happens in Boy Scouts, but it doesn't happen to me, or it happens in the Catholic Church, but I'm not Catholic. But 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused or assaulted in some way by the time they're 18. So it does happen. It happens to all of us, and chances are I'm not the only person in this room that it's happened to. And after you win the Olympics, you get this great, amazing platform. Most Olympians get all of these calls and endorsements, will you represent my brand? Will you do this? Will you come to this party? Will you do that? And I just remember getting phone call after phone call, will you come speak to my daughter's school? Will you come speak to this charity? Will you come speak to this organization? Something similar happened to my son. Can you help me talk to him? What do I say? How do I help? And so I decided to start the Fearless Foundation because all of these organizations, all these groups that I was speaking to were amazing, but I noticed that they're all a very local and regional level. There's no Live Strong, there's no Susan G. Komen, there's no big organization for survivors of sexual abuse. And I wanted to change that. So the goal of the Fearless Foundation is the first step is education. So I wrote a book, it's called Fighting Back. It's available on Amazon. And it's not a memoir and it's not a textbook. It's sort of a guide for caretakers, teachers, doctors, parents, anyone who's around kids, and also young kids themselves. The reason the book is unique is it uses my experience, my story, as this is what grooming looks like. This is what it looks like to be in the silence. But it also has, I have a co-author, 2 co-authors, 2 psychiatrists from McLean Hospital. So I have diary entries from the time I was like 10 years old. I wrote in a diary that whole time. So we use my story and then they explain what's happening. And you sort of get an inside look of what sexual abuse is, child sexual abuse is, and how we can prevent it. And then also, help survivors start to recover. I think, I always credit being able to overcome something like that. Obviously, you have to have something inside of you that wants to go on, but, it's also, I was very, very fortunate about the people that I was surrounded with once the abuse happened. My mom made a really tough decision. She moved me to Boston, 800 miles away from all of my family and friends. My new coaches were pretty much the complete opposite of my first coach. I trusted them as much as I trusted Daniel, but the Pedros are just, not only are they amazing coaches, they're just amazing people, and they had confidence in me, and they built me back up and made me believe in myself when nobody else did. Because of the big undertaking that the PFL is in the middle of, trying to make the sport a regular season, postseason championship, having all the men's weight classes, I think trying to build a women's division was just a little bit too much. It was just one too many things. So this year it's just going to be me and my weight class and a couple of random fights. But I fully expect by next year they're going to have a women's weight class, and we're going to have $1 million to fight for. I think women's MMA is probably the fastest growing sport in the world right now. I'm not sure MMA in general is one of the fastest growing sports, but especially for women. Girls are, every day, young girls are waking up and realizing they don't want to play with Barbie dolls, they want to learn how to kick things. So I think it's awesome. I think it's unfortunate that women's MMA is much further behind than the men's. They've got quite a jump on us in terms of how long they've been around, but I think you just got to give it a matter of time. Listen, I know probably 50 judo girls who weigh about the same as me who would be killers in MMA. So bring the money, bring some spotlight, give it some time, and it'll be there. Listen, I was Ronda's teammate. We were roommates. I grew up wanting to beat her. I always tell my coach, Big Jim, I feel like I have a Ronda complex. Anything she can do, I can do better, and I have to go prove it. So you guys aren't doing anything by bringing her up. I already have all these thoughts in my head, don't worry. But, she, at the end of the day, she opened a door for women like me, especially for judoka. I never thought about women's MMA before Ronda went and did what she did. So I'm grateful and thankful for that. I'm really glad that I signed with WSOF, now PFL. I feel like it's the right place for me.